Welcome to the Irish NFL Show, brought to you in association with QuinnBet. We're 6 days away from the start of the new NFL league year. That means we're 4 days away from what's known as the legal tampering period. That's the point where teams can negotiate freely with any unrestricted free agent they may wish to sign. It's also the window we're in now between the Combine, which concluded last weekend, and the start of that new league year, where general managers start floating trades and cutting deals. And we're already seeing some star players find new homes. So we thought we'd come out of hibernation for a quick podcast to look at some of the more interesting moves and the latest league speculation about what might happen next. Brian O'Leary, Kieran Boyle and Kieran O'Donovan with me, Conor Brophy, as we run the rule over some of the deals that have happened. And Brian, we start with Trent McDuffie, who is back, or rather is going from the Chiefs to the Rams. What I was going to say is Les Snead, the Rams general manager, is back trading first round picks to get a cornerback, which he famously did for Jalen Ramsey back in the day, and that didn't work out too badly for the Rams the last time around. They're putting one or two big pieces in play around the team that they already have. That wasn't too far away last season and wasn't too far away the season before, while they make the most out of what remains of the peak of Matthew Stafford's career.
Conor, in a period in the NFL where even the fans now are getting so highly strung on the draft and building your team through the draft, and it's all about the draft, and free agency is only a supplementary piece of where you should be really building a team, and that's the draft. Well, don't tell the GM of the Rams this, because he's.
I'm going to push back on that, right? Because that's fake news for me. The reason the Rams are in this position is because they built the team in the draft. They built around Jared Goff when they had a cost-controlled quarterback contract, and then they were able to add the pieces in Jalen Ramsey and Von Miller. So that's fake news, and they're back again because they rebuilt when they had the draft capital to do so.
I was kind of going down that road. I'll let you have the glory. What I was going to start off with was they've only selected one player in the first round since 2017. That was Jared Verse. But this year, I think the difference in them making this move is the fact that they do have the Falcons' first round pick, which I believe is around 13. So they're going to be picking reasonably high, and they're probably going to get another stellar player that can again be complemented into the team, which they already have. I think the glaring need towards the back end of the season was the secondary and the cornerback, and they've already looked at it and tried to address it. It strikes me as a team that are comfortable giving away picks because they know they are going to be thereabouts to come the next season, which is always very different, but there's certain things we know that are always going to be challenging. For the Chiefs, I think it's kind of similarities where we were when they traded away Tyreek Hill. I think they've acknowledged it's a reset year. They've got to get themselves back challenging, and they need picks and they need to get players in. They need to freshen things up. And they were in a situation where McDuffie was going to have to get paid, and I don't think they were in a position to, or they didn't want to be in that position where they're going to have to go and make a big payment or a big splash from a contractual perspective. So I think this is good for the Chiefs as well. I think that we will see the Chiefs team that will utilize this opportunity as well to rebuild their team.
Kieran Boyle, outside of the Titans and the Titans and who am I thinking of? The Raiders. The Chiefs probably are in the best position overall of any team in terms of cap space and draft capital. They're picking high, which is an unusual position for them in this year's draft. They have a top 10 draft pick for the first time since they drafted Patrick Mahomes. They're in good shape here, all things considered, to rebuild, provided Mahomes comes back from the injury on schedule and provided they make the right moves in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, like Brian said, I think the McDuffie deal was, it was probably a badly kept secret around town, but it's good business for the Chiefs. It's good business for the Rams. I mean, there's a couple other players in the Chiefs you'd have to keep your eye on too. Leo Chanel, a lot of talk and chatter about him on the move. Talk of the Giants with their middle and general linebacker needs. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a retooling because you still have Mahomes and you still have Travis Kelce in place, but they definitely need to. They've got to, I was talking to a couple of people about it. When you look at some of the teams in the NFL who've got absolutely stellar wide receiver ones, and then you see what the Chiefs have done over the last 4, 5, 6 years with basically a bunch of wide receiver threes, maybe 2.5s, and what they've been able to do with that is quite phenomenal. And that a lot of that obviously is a testament to what Mahomes can do. But this is a chance. There's some really good, like you said, they're picking fairly high up, and this is a chance for them to do some work in free agency, but also do some work in the draft. There's a number of quality wide receivers who should be still there in that kind of that first half of the first round. So they'll definitely be looking to tool up corners as well. They're going to have to do some work with corners, and to fill in that McDuffie spot. And also, I think they've got to do some work with linebackers. But Wide receiver, you're looking at the skill positions, maybe running back too. You know, there's been chatter about Jeremiah Love, and if he can fall that far. So you don't want to say it's retooling, but it's definitely a reality check for the Chiefs because they didn't have it all the way last year. They thought they could get by on the, like I said, the wide receiver 2.5, and they're really going to have to, you know, just to tool up and add some real quality pieces at that team to keep the playoff train going, which they fell off of last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in this draft, just to keep Mahomes in the style which he's accustomed to.
Kieran O'Donovan, if we're talking about teams with wide receiver needs, the Bills just addressed a big one in trading with the Bears for DJ Moore. How does that trade stack up for you?
Yeah, well, I was listening to Chris Sims earlier on today, and he's of the opinion that it's a good move on both sides. I know, we were chatting in the group a while ago, and I know you have mixed feelings as a Bears fan about DJ Moore. He's a big-time player in terms of his big playability, and we all know that that's what the Bills want. The Bills want that. I won't say boom or bust, but they want that boom receiver that can, take the top off a defense in an instant. We saw DJ Moore do that so many times last year. Another player that was being touted as a potential target for the Bills was Mike Evans, but maybe DJ Moore is the alternative to that. In terms of the Bears, Sims, again, he cites this as a great move from the Bears. It takes money off the books and it sets them up possibly to make a play for one of the bigger free agents, maybe, like a Max Crosby, a Trey Hendrickson, to address that pass rushing need. They have plenty of weapons on offense. They have plenty of productivity from Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, Roma Dunze. I don't think they're short of any weapons. They have a good running game. They have a good offensive line. So yeah, I think it's a good move by the Bears. It remains to be seen. Again, I'm influenced by what you said earlier on as to whether DJ Moore is going to solve the problem for the Bills, in that he can lack a little bit in terms of desire, in terms of his attitude, and his commitment to a play. So it's a bit of a risky move, but I'd like to hear your take on it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, like you said, I do have mixed feelings on him, because if you look at his time in Chicago, I mean, DJ Moore has made his career on being productive in unproductive offenses. And at a time when the Bears were poor, at a time when the Carolina Panthers were poor, Moore managed to put up incredible numbers with, no name or meh quarterbacks throwing him the ball in offenses that were sputtering, and play in, play out, he produced big highlights for all the teams he played for, including the Bears, and including last season when his target share went down, when his yards overall were down. If you'd have said at the start of last season, if you'd asked a Bears fan, okay, DJ Moore is going to finish with fewer than 700 yards, 50 receptions, what do you think the Bears' record is going to be? You would have said, oh, well, it's obviously a disaster and Ben Johnson's offense hasn't worked. I think DJ Moore's cards were marked from early last season, because it was clear Ben Johnson went in with a blueprint to get the most out of the entire offense and all the skilled players. There's a reason they had drafted Luther Burden. They went for Colston Loveland for a reason. They had plans for Roma Dunze, and it was never going to be about one player. And I think the Bears are trying to build something similar to what the Packers have, Kieran, which is where, because the coach knows what he's doing, because the coaching is good, and you saw players like Luther Burden and Colston Loveland come in and get better and better over the course of the season. You trust Ben Johnson and that offense more now, and you trust Ryan Poles to be able to pick up wide receivers in the second, third round and use the picks that they have, rather than needing to go wild in free agency. And I think, to your point, this is a good move for the Bears, gets them a second round pick, which they may use to package up, as you say, maybe for a move for Matt Crosby or other, to address that glaring pass rush need that they have. I think it's a good move for the Bills, because I think Moore is probably a better fit in that Bills offense than he was in Ben Johnson's Bears offense, and he's likely to get a greater target share. It's probably likely to be more at home. I kind of felt, in a weird way, Moore had the look of a player who thought, finally now I'm in position to thrive, and it didn't quite have the role marked out for him in that Ben Johnson offense that he thought he would have. And as a result, like you said, his effort level seemed to dip on plays where he wasn't the target, which clearly wasn't what was required. I mean, I think what Ben Johnson wants is what Sean McVay had in Cooper Kupp, guy who, even when he was in Triple Crown form at the peak of his career, still put it in on every play when he was blocking. He wasn't just the best receiver on the team, he was the best blocker on the team. DJ Moore isn't that player, but in a position where he's likely to be the WR1 or WR1.5, I think he probably will thrive in Buffalo. And it's probably a good move for both teams and for the player himself. Kieran Boyle, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah,
on
I got an alternate take on that. I'm a little surprised that they went that route, because what was a big knock on the Bills last year? It was talented wide receiver, and when teams have such a dearth of wide receiver talent, they usually go big on high end talent. I'm not saying DJ Moore is not, but he's never had more than 1,400 yards in a season. He's never had more than 8 touchdowns in a season, and I'm just a little surprised the Bills went all in on this. I'm sure they're going to add some more pieces in free agency and in the draft as well, the wide receiver position. I'm just a little surprised they went this hard on DJ Moore. Obviously a down year with the Bears with all the other wide receivers they had, but I don't know. It seems a strange one for me, but it's probably in keeping with some of Brandon Beane's latest moves.
Yeah, I thought they might have made the bid for Alec Pierce, but maybe the thinking there was you probably get DJ Moore for under 30 million a season. You're going to be paying Alec Pierce north of 30 million, and maybe that was a little bit too rich for their blood. Brian, Kyler Murray is going to be released by the Cardinals. He's going to be available. Who's going to take the plunge?
It's an intriguing one. It's speculating over a number of teams. I have a sneaking feeling for the Vikings, Connor, and people kind of have already whiffed at that. If they've listened to certain podcasts today who are also speculating the same. I mean, there's 3 teams been essentially put in the mix here, and probably the obvious ones being the Jets, which I don't think it would be a bad situation either for the Jets, bearing in mind where they are. It's a cost-friendly contract to bring in, give him an opportunity to try essentially regalvanize his career. The Jets expect to be picking high next year in the draft, so if it doesn't work out and Kyler Murray can play reasonably well and move off somewhere else and get another contract elsewhere, it might work for both teams. But the Vikings, for me, kind of strikes me as that similarity which we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, kind of where Kevin O'Connell takes in a quarterback that people feel is going the wrong side in terms of their career, and he gives them an opportunity to go again, fresh start, and they look what happened to Sam Darnold, ultimately what happened to the GM, because he didn't hold on to Sam Darnold. Inevitably, he lost his job in the end. But is that a situation where they're not convinced by JJ McCarthy? Kyler Murray's given an opportunity to either sit for a year or go in and challenge JJ McCarthy, because I just don't think they've got the confidence there that he's the bona fide starter there. So maybe he goes in and wins that opportunity. And for the Falcons, there's another one that's been thrown into the mix, but maybe that one might not work. But I think the Vikings is a fresh start and a good one for him. Thoughts?
The other option for the Vikings, Kieran Donovan, though, if we're talking about the Vikings, might be Malik Willis. Like, somebody's going to take a swing on Malik Willis. Why not Minnesota?
Yeah, well, I think the growing sentiment is that the Vikings are going to be in the market for somebody, because there doesn't seem to be anything coming out to suggest that they're happy in any way with the JJ McCarthy situation, that there doesn't seem to be any confidence. I think any quarterback that goes into Minnesota can expect to be at least competing for the starting job. So I think when it comes to Minnesota, there's a long list depending on where Kevin O'Connell's mindset is. Like if you look, and again, depending on who you're listening to, there's a suggestion that because of what happened with Sam Darnold, that Kevin O'Connell may be looking for the next, the next guy to reclaim, or the reclamation project, or a rejuvenation of a quarterback that's kind of been through the ringer. So I mean, there's a long list. I mean, you look at, like, Mac Jones is a name that stands out to me. A guy who was a high draft pick and very quite productive last year when he got the chance for the 49ers. But there's always, you talk about Kyler Murray, about Tua Tagovailoa as whether there's a kind of a reset there for them, whether they'd be willing to go and sit behind a starter. But yeah, Malik Willis is a completely, I think, a different prospect, because Malik Willis came out of the blocks for the Packers last year and looked absolutely ready. I mean, like he looked ready to take an offense. But the problem is, and I listened to Sam Monson and Steve Palazzolo, the sample size is just too small. So is a team going to take a punt on him?
It's fascinating how like sometimes you think, okay, we're so clueless, we're just fans on the outside of the fishbowl looking in, and yet you see how general managers and coaches get just as amped and just as hyped over the same stuff that we do. Like, I mean, I was actually looking at the stats coldly, and I would have said, as a fan, yeah, I mean, I'm watching him as to what he did with against the Bears when he came in for the Packers. You're like, man, this guy is a problem. He's difficult to deal with, and you're thinking, okay, is he that good, or is it just that teams don't have enough tape on him? Or, fine, he's that good in one of the best functioning offenses in the league, one of the best play callers you're going to have. But is he ever going to get that situation around him again if he goes somewhere else? Then you realize he's, like you said, he's only started 6 games in the NFL. It's just impossible to know. He certainly looked the part. He looked like a guy who's a capable NFL starting quarterback, and maybe that's the point. Kieran Boyle is that there's just never enough quarterbacks to go around for the available vacancies. There just aren't 32 eligible starting quarterbacks realistically in the NFL at any given time. And why not? Is Kyler Murray, though, the solution that a team is looking for? I know he's not a guy that necessarily jumps out in your mind as the phrase you always use, a leader of men.
Not a leader of men at all. No, I mean, I know he can get the league minimum, and I'm sure somebody will pick him up because, he's going to be peanuts next year. But I mean, all the character flaws are there. I mean, Steve Keim, the guy who gave him that giant contract, he put a clause in that he's got to watch tape, because the knock on him was that he loved playing video games and his concentration level wasn't where it should be for a pro. I mean, we've seen those kind of warning signs with Jamarcus Russell. We've seen it with plenty of players in the past. And I think the knock on Murray is like I say, you have to have that presence about you to play the quarterback position. I mean, I'm not asking to be Peyton Manning or Johnny Unitas, but you have to be able to see that a player can command respect. And we know we had those issues with Malik, with Harrison Jr. last year and the previous year. It's a real quandary for me because he's got talent, but he just you hear it all the time. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, and this is a classic case of that. Blessed with skills. I mean, he's got a statue outside Oklahoma University Stadium. He was drafted by the Oakland Athletics. He can still actually play with them this year if he decides not to play football. But all the body language, it's just not there. And I think GMs will see that too, and coaches will see that. Like I said, somebody will pick him up, but I just think his days. I know he only had 5 games last season before he got injured against the Titans, but I think that I think he's damaged property at this stage, and I think sample sizes. We talk about Malik Willis and how much he's played. Teams will probably be more inclined to take a punt on him as opposed to Kyler Murray, who's not really shown the ability to lead a team, to go into a deep run of wins with a team. So it's going to be a backup position for me for Murray. I just don't see coaches having enough faith in him to play him.
The good thing about Murray, just to jump in, and sorry to interrupt, the good thing about Murray or the appealing prospect for Murray is that if they are now that they have released him, it's not a risk for a team to take him on if they've got an alternative option, because from a money point of view, they can pay him the league minimum. So I'm, every year since I've been involved in this show, I'm starting to upskill on the whole money side of things, and I think I get most of my information from Brian. I'm picking his brains on it the whole time, but it's not going to cost a team much money to take a punt on him. It's actually the Cardinals that'll take the hit. So I think it was Adam Schefter that floated the theory that if his ego wasn't too big, that he'd be willing to go and sit behind a quarterback. The likes of, we'll say, go back to Green Bay, who are getting rid of Malik Willis, or who are losing Malik Willis, should I say, to put it more kindly, to Malik, because he's earning the spot. And the downside to Malik Willis is he's going to command a high price, and as we said, the sample size is small, so who's going to take that risk? It remains to be seen. But if he's willing to go in and sit, I could see the likes of Green Bay going in and saying, look, we'll take you at the league minimum to sit behind Jordan Love as an insurance policy in case he goes down again. But it's whether he's going to be okay with that.
Connor, just a quick one on Malik Willis. From a GM perspective, bearing in mind we just touched on the sample size isn't enough. Yeah, he played quite well for the Packers towards the end of the season, but we've seen very little very early on. Now, bearing in mind at one stage he was a 4th round pick and he went in the 3rd round. A GM who pays him the kind of money that's being quoted, and I appreciate it's speculation right now, but they're suggesting 40 million contracts. If he doesn't deliver, that GM is out the door no matter what the circumstances. If he does deliver, well, then they might be onto a very cost-friendly contract in the long term. And it might go down as one of the best signings in the free agency period. But for me, it's a gamble. And the teams that are being suggested are going from next week. I mean, they're all in very precarious situations as it is. Even the Dolphins with the new GM.
This is the point I was making. Like, you ain't playing for the Green Bay Packers in your next stop. Like,
exactly.
Wherever you're going, it's going to be a much worse setup than the one that you had, in which you thrived in the limited number of starts that we saw. But like, that's not going to be replicated wherever he goes. He's going to have to carry a much bigger burden, and maybe he is capable of doing that. Like, we don't know because we haven't seen enough of it. I think it's exciting and it's intriguing. And to your point, there's definitely someone out there who's willing to make that gamble, because it is a career maker or breaker for a GM. But these guys don't get to that position without thinking that every ball that they hit is going to be a home run. That's just the nature of it, and that's what makes it a lot of fun to watch.